What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Retro Encounter. As always, I'm Josh Curry. With me is Alana Hagues.
Hey guys, what's up?
Mike Sollosi.
Hello, everybody.
And Peter Triezenberg.
Hi there.
And we are here to talk about the ending of Danganronpa. On the last episode, we played through the end of the third chapter. We had found out that there was some betrayal, some spies. We were getting to the juiciness, and then we decided to record the podcast. So now we're ready to really delve in, have some craziness happen, and try to decipher the ending.
There were spies and betrayal, definitely. But was there also despair? I'm not sure if they mentioned despair.
I don't feel like anything was very despairish.
Okay,
I don't know.
You don't remember them mentioning despair at all? Not sure.
No.
Maybe I'm just misremembering.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Celeste went and got herself burned alive and then hit by a fire truck, so...
Yeah,
That
spoiler alert, they never freaking stop talking about despair in this game.
The
That
Celeste
did not
dying
cause
did not fill me with despair.
Peter's just saying what I'm thinking and trying, yeah.
I was filled with despair when Yasuhiro ended up never being a victim.
But they did,
Yeah.
because you'd been upset that he was so old. They actually do explain that. So that made me feel
they
better.
explain why he's old and why he's bad at his job, but they never explain why he gets to survive at the end. That was what bothered me about it. My least favorite character made it through.
But then think about it. It's like a wasted kill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have taken him ahead of Sakura 100 times out of 100.
But you keep him around because he's an idiot. So it's one of those things that, in the court case, there's a chance you can have him as a swing vote.
I'm not metagaming this the way you are. I just don't.
No, but it makes complete sense. He's not even worth the effort. You can set him up as a fall guy in some circumstances when he's too much of an idiot to argue out of it. And then if you incorporate ghosts or something into it, he's going to freak out. And then just weird stuff. And he's just like, all right, well, it must be this person. He never put anything together the entire game.
And the second he gets an idea into his head, he just kind of goes along with it, even when he's like trying to offer contradictory evidence. Like Yasuhiro's purpose almost is solely just to extend the class trials.
So you're sitting in a situation then, like Bakia, but whatever, glasses, guy with glasses.
Byakuya.
Best guy.
Douche pool.
He is sitting in a situation that he could at some point set up a murder, be the person that actually killed the person, but have Toko take the fall because she is moving stuff around for him because she'll do anything for him. And then you could have just convinced this moron that you didn't do it, and you're set because you have a block of 3 people that aren't going to vote for yourself.
Look, I don't think this group took, this level of, Survivor television show tactics in the murder votes, but maybe they did. I didn't look into it that deeply. I just don't like Yasuhiro.
He was harmless. That's the other reason
Yeah.
you keep him around, because he's harmless.
Yeah, you have to have this kind of idiot character. I think Makoto is initially set up to be the kind of, like, the Bryce Papenbrook character that he is. The kind of, I'm just an average guy. Yeah, he's great, but he's kind of just like, I know things, I'm just here because I'm lucky, I'm not that intelligent. But Makoto develops quite a lot, and Yasuhiro.
I would challenge the notion that he's not intelligent, because he's,
he's set up to not be, I think. I think he's set up to be, like, the everyman.
Yeah,
and then in the end...
He's not a mad genius like Junko, who we will definitely talk about later. Or
Kyoko.
Yeah, or a brilliant detective like Kyoko. But he's, he reasons out things. He's not dumb, and he ultimately is, the good guy. If any, the thing I find most annoying about Makoto is how, resolutely good he is.
Yeah, everybody's his friend.
Yeah, he has to be everyone's friend, and he has to be the good guy all the time, which is fair, and it's part of his personality. I don't dislike Makoto, but that I think of him more as just a normal guy that tries to do good rather than someone.
Well, he's filled with hope.
Yeah,
That's what makes him the ultimate.
He is the ultimate hope.
He's the least likely to murder someone in this game, but that's because he's a good person and not because he's a moron like Yasuhiro.
Yasuhiro is most likely not to murder anybody.
And it would be because of incompetence and not intent.
Exactly.
Yeah, what's Yasuhiro going to do?
Yeah, which is what he essentially almost does in Chapter 4, which is probably where we should start.
Yeah. So
Chapter 4 has
finished,
like a multi-character smoke screen.
We had finished
Yeah, but
chapter 3 and figured out that Sakura was a spy, and 4 starts off with everybody just super, super pissed because they find out as well, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Monokuma decides he's going to spread some despair around the group by revealing the traitor among them. And then right away, it ends up being that Sakura is the victim in the next case.
Before we get going, I just have to admit, chapter 4 was the hardest chapter for me because Kyoko hated me the whole time, and I was quite sad.
And that made you sad?
And you
I
couldn't date her.
That would make me sad.
I was quite heartbroken about that.
Yeah, but...
No, my waifu. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it was an interesting case, but it was a really frustrating case.
I agree. I think I knew it was the first case where I just sort of looked at the murder victim and just went, so that's suicide, isn't it?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it was just like dragging it out, and actually out of all the class trials, out of everything, it was probably my least favorite chapter because of the way that it's set up. So the way the class trial develops, it's kind of just like, okay, it's either going to be Yasuhiro, Byakuya, or Toko, and then all three of them are basically drawn into it, and Yasuhiro and Toko both think they've killed her, and it's like, no, you haven't, because the door,
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
hangman, whatever the door thing's called, like locking the
A
locked room scenario.
murder.
the locked room scenario. Yeah, and it was
And-
just the minute that somebody said that, it was just sort of like, well, that's done, isn't it? Why are we doing this?
It was
I still thought the chain
so
of logic-
obvious.
It is obvious, but I thought the chain of logic was still pretty interesting, trying to figure it out. At least watching the case unfold itself.
I think, I think contextually, actually, it's good because it's kind of like you expect every trial to have a murderer, and these kids expect every trial to have a murderer. So at the end of it, to find out that somebody's committed suicide, one, it goes against Byakuya's notion that this whole thing's a game and that everybody wants to, like, somebody wants to win, and somebody's going to win. And then, like, the suicide is kind of just like, oh my god, somebody would kind of kill themselves in this scenario and save everybody, and it is a bit different, and I do like it, but I think overall it was probably my least favorite case for the kind of just dragging out things. But Sakura's a really great character, and I really like her relationship with Hina, because Hina and Sakura are adorable together. Like, I love Hina's kind of...
They were so
Okay.
cute as just being best friends, that and their relationship seemed, normal and natural. Like, oh, this is a extremely screwed up situation, but hey, these two girls are tight, and one of them kind of lost it when the other one died.
Yeah, especially with Chapter 2 when you see them training. Sorry, Peter, I keep interrupting you. And
It's fine.
like in Chapter 2 when Hina and Sakura are training together, like, I think they're the most well-developed pairing. So last time we were talking about Mondo and Taka, their relationship is very brief, the kind of like 30 seconds, and then, oh no, Taka's dead next chapter, and Byakuya is dead at the end of this chapter. Whereas Hina and Sakura, you've seen develop over 3.5 chapters, and then all of a sudden, even actually at the end of the trial, you just kind of, you get their relationship.
I also didn't like Chapter 4 as much as the first 3, but I thought it presented a very interesting scenario. Suicide is a bit of a twist compared to the first 3 chapters. And
Yeah, there was a reason to things.
And you have 2 characters that think they did it, and one character who knows it was a suicide, but is trying to be as obstructive as possible. So it's that was an interesting gameplay scenario to present, but I didn't think the execution was as satisfying as one of the more normal murder trials.
To the point that she actually took the blame for it. Which
she wanted to take the blame for it. That was screwed
still
up.
don't. I mean, I get, but it didn't sit well with me.
The thing about it that I like is, like Mike keeps saying, the game has a fondness for presenting you with 2 characters that you really like and kind of get to know them, and then ripping the friendship apart in the bloodiest way possible. And in the case of Sakura and Hina, I think having Hina's character in that trial adds an emotional core to it. And since the themes of Danganronpa are all about hope and despair, and the whole theme of this and the whole point of the situation they're in is to spread despair. I guess it just kind of seems like Sakura's death is. I mean, what is Hina doing other than despairing? She wants to die and take everyone else with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because Monokuma, I think the way Josh was saying that, like, you know, the understanding of why she did it, like, and why Hina defended, was trying to cover up the death is because Monokuma forges the suicide note or creates a fake one, doesn't he? To say that
Monokuma.
Yeah.
Which
he basically
starts a trend of Monokuma messing around with the results of the class trial, trying to get the leg up on them.
Getting more involved, yeah.
Yeah, I actually didn't think there would be class trials after Chapter 4, so like I thought Chapter 4 would kind of be the one where everyone was like, "Oh no, we're fine, we've done this." But yeah,
well, it
like,
kind of sets that up because everybody agrees to like stop playing the game essentially.
Yeah,
and that was the great moment. Like, I didn't like the trial of 4, but everything that comes out of it, I thought was super interesting because you see a huge turn in a lot of the characters and how they're looking at it. And like we talked about Bakia like looking at it as a game, something he has to win, and like fully switching to like this game doesn't matter because people aren't playing it, and so I'm no longer going to play it, and we're going to as a unit kind of rebel against like the game maker essentially. And that whole turn, that was more surprising than anything else in Chapter 4 with the case. Like that was huge. Like I was shocked by that.
Yeah, I did like the end. Yeah.
R.I.P. Chihiro AI.
Yeah,
kind of.
You weren't she's already... Monokuma's like, well, no one is a murderer in this case, but we're still going to have a punishment. And I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, poor Chihiro.
I had kind of wanted them, which Chihiro actually worked out really well. But if like going around the despair element, how messed up would it have been if he took Sakura and actually like did a execution to a dead body?
Whoa,
okay.
Yeah, that would have been uncomfortable.
That would have been simple lines.
And that's where I thought they were going at first. Like that is super messed up. Like,
that was the first thought that popped into my head too, and I was almost kind of relieved for a second when it wasn't, and then I saw it was Alter Ego, and then I was like, no.
But Alter Ego, they're kind of that had reached its end point. There wasn't much.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense.
It fulfilled its purpose. And it came back, technically.
Yeah. One last-ditch effort.
Right.
So yeah, I get what you're saying, though, Alana, because it kind of, based on how that trial wraps up and like the notes, the note is the actual note from Sakura is very ominous because you don't know the direction, but it is able to pull them together. You kind of are left with this idea of maybe there's not going to be any more killing. How are they going to keep this plot moving forward? And it ends up being a bunch of craziness. A
16th student.
Yeah. There's a 16th student. There is you having a fever dream and not knowing what's going on, and there's even finally an element of like maybe I actually did kill somebody.
As a side note, like how many times do they have to say the 16th student's name before you remember it? Because they replay that same cutscene where Kyoko just goes, Mukuro Ikasawa, and I'm just like, are you joking? Like, does it need to be voiced every time?
Yes.
The same bit?
Yes,
of course it does.
Every time.
I guess, it takes, I guess at least 3 times to make sure that it's really in your head is enough, but I'm pretty sure they exceeded that.
It's also one of those things, it's unfortunate because, and this was bothering me for the longest time, and it's kind of fixed with how the end is, but it kind of sucks that you don't really truly meet the 16th character. Right. In a roundabout way you do.
Yeah, I would really like to have interacted with Mukuro, because I think she would have been a really strange dynamic in the group.
She's not around in school mode, right? Like,
she's not. No, it's only Junko is in school mode, but Mukuro is.
But is it Junko or Mukuro in?
I think okay. I guess it is Mukuro pretending to be Junko because because
we're getting ahead of ourselves, but
yeah. Well, I mean, Monokuma is present in school mode, so I think it's technically Mukuro pretending to be Junko and Junko controlling Monokuma. But we are getting ahead of ourselves.
But it was one of those things, and I think that's maybe why they stressed saying the name so much, is there had to be something that was built up around this character, because even the characters that died right away, we had personality attached to them. They were something to us. And we were able to come either like them or hate them. We had some sort of feeling about them. And with Makara, like, it's just one of those things like, well, she's dead. We find out about her and then she's dead. And there's no in between, and you're trying to like piece these puzzle pieces together, and it just doesn't have that same like level of feeling that you had with all the other characters.
So, and instead what they did, which is kind of clever, is they just built up that air of mystery around Mukuro.
Yeah.
And then once she turns up dead, and all of a sudden you're in another class trial, out of nowhere, it just makes the whole thing that much more interesting.
Right, and I think that's why they replayed that stupid scene over and over again, which I actually really liked the scene the first time, and after about like 2 more times, like, no longer a fan.
Oh, yeah,
But
understand.
I think Peter hits it perfectly where he says that they're building up some sort of mystery around that individual. And I think also there was an element of they're trying to build this person up into something massive, and then all of a sudden they're dead. And so it's like, well, there again, it's kind of one of those kind of pulling the rug out from under you, where you expect this person to be the one that's going around killing everybody.
Yeah, it's one of it's one of the first several sort of, I don't know if it's a twist, but sort of smoke screens that is revealed before Junko's big entrance at the beginning of the 6th chapter, or partway through the 6th chapter.
Incidentally,
sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, were you moving on to case 5? Because I wanted to talk about something in case 5.
Yeah, I was going to move on to case 5.
Okay, go ahead.
So between case 4 and case 5, Kyoko basically disappears because they take away her key and then she just wanders off.
Were you sad again?
No, because I knew she was going to go figure something out. I had faith in her.
Good.
But it was one of those things. How many people thought that when the corpse exploded, or even when you saw the corpse, that was Kyoko?
No, not even for a second.
No, I didn't think. I'm not sure what I thought. I can't really remember. I remember being really weirded out by it. I just couldn't put a finger on it at the time. No really useful comment there. Never mind.
It didn't seem to fit the game's MO to kill such a major character with like no preamble.
And that's kind of how I fell on it too. Is maybe it was just wishful thinking that she couldn't have died, but like they just never felt right. At no point is like this is how this was going to happen. Even where they try to piece together where she's there with the person that has the knife, that has the lab coat in your room. You don't know what happens between you and the lab coat person, and then she shows up. So there's all those questions around that, and still it's like this does still like at no point does that seem to fit together correctly.
Yeah, and then she shows up at the trial, and that just throws things into more disarray.
That was one of those things like as soon as they're like it's not starting, I was like, yep, because we're waiting for her. This is kind of obvious.
Did any of you, what I was going to ask was, did any of you guys get the bad ending?
So is the bad ending when you don't support her in the lie?
If you choose to pursue the lie, it leads to an ending where she gets executed and you guys live out the rest of your days in the school.
I thought you had to see that ending. Or am
I didn't. No.
To get the trophy for all the scenes or cinematics or whatever, you have to go through.
I did go through that one again, but I thought you sort of had to. Maybe I just was wrong.
It does bump you back to the choice after you get it, so it's not like a true bad end in any sense. It's also I thought it was kind of funny for kind of twisted reasons when like they show the photograph and it's like. Mm-hmm. Aoi has everyone's babies, and I'm just like, ew.
Yeah, well, I think it's Toko's not in the picture, but it is implied that Toko and Aoi have children.
Well, so Byakuya is holding a picture of Toko, and I'm like, did they just kill Toko? And like...
maybe are we really opposed to that?
I like her. Honestly, she grew on me the most out of any character.
I
like
find
Genocide Jill.
I find her a little
I like
annoying.
Genocide Jill. Toko
Yeah.
itself isn't that interesting, but the duo is really funny.
Sure. But yeah, it shows, pregnant Aoi and a bunch of small children with 3 men that are survivors. It's not.
And then Makoto's like, "No, I don't want that," and I'm like, "Yeah, you do."
I'm going to be totally honest and say I didn't actually realize there was a bad ending. So I was like, well, I'm going to support Kyoko because Kyoko's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea that would... I think I suspected it at the time. I just read it and just thought, come on, you can't be that stupid and pursue the lie. You can't actually think that she's lying to frame you. You must know she's lying to do something good because that's Kyoko. She's done that before, essentially, or done something similar.
And they had the huge lead up of doing stuff that's difficult to be able to in the end be successful, and they play that scene before you make the decision. So it is a huge hint of this is her like recalling like it. I thought it was very played out. Like I thought it was
it's very well telegraphed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So okay, good. I'm happy nobody was upset. Like thought there was going to be Kyoko, but I am kind of upset that at the same time because I wanted it to be believable to somebody.
I mean, I was kind of going along with it, like because I didn't know Kyoko's true motives or intentions the entire time. I just figured, well, the plot seems to want me to go one way, so I'm going to pick the other choice just to see what happens. And fortunately, it rerouted you straight back.
That's good.
The nice thing about Case 5, though, even though it's fixed and it's kind of, in that regard, is broken, is the first time that I did not solve a case, like, right away.
Oh yeah, of course, because we don't really know.
I came up with a great solution. My solution was fantastic.
So
what was it?
It does. You don't really have a time of date for, like, when the death occurs. So it's really simple then. You have Bakia kill her before nighttime, like before they find the robot. Because of that, he forces everybody to hang out with him. And that's when they do the shifts, because he's purposely making sure everybody's in shifts so that he has an ironclad alibi later on. He has Toko doing whatever he wants, so that's when she goes up. She takes off the tarp, throws the thing on with the dead chicken. That's taken care of. She comes down. There's plenty of time for her to be able to do that and come back down. And she's doing it to support her master. And he is able to frame it against everybody else. You avoid all of the sprinklers and whatnot. All of that is fine. I thought he was finally making a move. I was actually excited because I was like, we've been building up for him to have like this perfect murder. And we finally reached it.
Oh, that kind of would have gone against his character development in the last case.
I feel like it would have done, yeah.
It would have, but then also he could have been doing that to make sure everybody didn't think that. And then he purposely implies that Toko should touch the body, has her blow up, and was hoping that she would die.
Yeah.
So that he could get rid of...
I do get that, though.
That made me laugh, where he's just like, she was probably incinerated in the explosion. It's no big deal. She wakes up. Oh.
But also, he was like so nonchalant about it, like, yeah, she got hit by an explosion. That is like, maybe he did do that. Maybe he did set that up.
I can see where you're coming from, because if you do all of Byaku's kind of like side things, then he says that to get to the head of the Togami family, he had to physically fight every single one of his siblings and family members. And he says this. He says he has to like fight them and kill some of them. So
Byaku, a secret badass.
But yeah, I was
pretty
just waiting.
much.
This was the long tail of like we saw this huge character like metamorphosis into like everybody's quote unquote better person, and how great would that have been if that was just a show to be able to pull off this murder?
It could have been interesting.
It would have been interesting. It ends up being more interesting because it actually leads to the ending of the game. I don't know what they would have done if that would have been Case 5. Another one of the people had died. So you kind of run out of people that are going to kill anybody.
Yeah. The plot demands it.
Yeah, and so you get framed. You basically get framed by Kyoko, which is kind of interesting as well.
And she was prepared for Makoto to die to see her point taken through,
Yeah.
because she couldn't have known that alter ego was going to show up at the last second and save his butt.
So I actually had a question about that. She was off doing all sorts of things. She didn't set that up.
I don't know.
I don't
feel like-
think she did.
Yeah, I also don't feel like she would set Makoto up.
It could
To,
be that
like,
she didn't.
kill-
It could be that she didn't think that Monokuma was going to cut the trial short.
Probably because she'd figured out that the whole point of the trial was to kill her.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, I don't know whether she knew about. I didn't think she knew about alter ego, because the surprise when she jumps down the chute, she's just kind of like, "Oh, Makoto, I'm glad I found you. That was really lucky," or something like that.
With a cup of noodles on her head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that. I was like, she is willing to go to any lengths, and obviously, we very shortly after that find out it's because of her dad. So she has motive beyond just trying to survive. But yeah, I was like, she took it real far if she was willing to let me die. So I don't know. It works out in the end. You fall down a chute, which still, you should have died from falling down that chute.
There's lots of smelly garbage to protect Makoto's fall.
Based off of how long it took him to go up the ladder, though, it seemed like he fell like a mile.
You are climbing that ladder a long ass time. Oh, man.
Anime logic. This universe has robot teddy bears.
Yeah, RPGs have conditioned me to think that going up a bunch of ladders in a row is no big deal, but that is an outright lie. Climbing ladders over and over works you out.
There's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I should have died falling down that down. And you're falling on top of, like, you start looking around. It's like there's a tank, there's a bulldozer.
Well, I mean, come on. How many times do you fall from giant heights in video games and land safely? It's completely
Never.
It's completely game to game whether a fall from an enormous impossible height will do any damage at all to you or not. I don't think this is worth. This is a point worth griping about.
It was disappointing.
Cloud lands in Aerith's church, so
So
Well,
there's
that's
no
'cause
fall.
The power of a church protected him. Duh.
If you
I
fall
was
from a
gonna say-
building in Grand Theft Auto, you could die. But if you fall from a building in any number, like in Dragon Quest VII, which I'm playing right now, it's fine. You just land at the bottom of the tower. It is totally game to game. And why are we even talking about this? Come on, man.
Always
flimsy.
the conclusion is that Danganronpa does not factor in fall damage.
Also, when you fall, you're not going to stay in the desk. How is when he wakes up him still
Dude,
being in a
come
desk?
on, man.
He's strapped in,
Come on.
isn't he?
Did he fall and then choose to get back into the desk?
Why?
Like, oh,
is
this
supposed
bug
to be
hurt, I'm gonna
so-
pass
presumably
out.
he was strapped in, because otherwise he wouldn't have left the death. He would have, because he was about to be executed.
He was probably strapped. Oh, fine, whatever. I was disappointed. That's all I'm going to say.
But it's
And also-
This is your equivalent of me getting mad about the T-Rex in Parasite Eve. I just want you to
No,
know
because
that.
the T-Rex was fine.
Yeah, and so is Makoto still being in the desk when he wakes up in the garbage pit.
But
where
then the
people-
teacher's desk should have fallen on top of him.
Okay, maybe there are some logical inconsistencies with this desk, but do we really have to belabor this point?
Yes.
Welcome to Desk Encounter, the RPG Fans Desk podcast.
We talk about.
Can we actually talk about the final case, or you still want to talk about desks?
Fine.
So they convince Monokuma to give them another shot since Makoto survived, and that proves that the mastermind cheated or whatever. So they have to give another chance to figure out everything in the school, or they all die. So it's kind of the ultimate end game.
Yeah,
and
it's actually called
they
the
finally
Ultimate
let
Game.
you in that control room too.
Yeah, that was kind of cool,
Yeah.
like finding out what was behind all the locked doors.
I was more intrigued by the second story of the dorms.
Yeah, that was
second
really cool.
dorms. Yeah.
When you go in there and it's been like wrecked.
Yeah.
Right.
that's where. So this is one of the mistakes I did make, and I had been very confused about it. Um, at the beginning, when they talk about the tragedy and it being like the worst thing that ever happened to like in the human history and whatnot, I was very confused because I was thinking very small level because everything in the game had been situated around it being a school. I thought it was a school incident, so I'm thinking something on par to like a Columbine or something where it is there was a massacre inside this school. You had all these brilliant people, the people that are going to be the future of society, and one or a group of them turn and murdered a bunch or almost all of them or the entire school. And
are you talking about the event?
yes.
Okay, right.
You weren't expecting it to go full Skynet.
And that was kind of the first indication. You go into that second set of dorms, and it's so destroyed. I was like, okay, there's something that happened exterior to this building.
Yeah,
and that's where I try to start piecing together. How did we get here? Would not notice this. How? That's where I started moving possibly in the direction of where Junko was. I'm not gonna lie, I did not get to that point. But that was the first time I was like, okay, this was just not a school incident. This was a more worldwide incident, or something bigger had to have happened than just a massacre at a school.
Unfortunately, I had that like the identity of the mastermind was spoiled for me before starting Danganronpa. But I also knew about the tragedy, not specifically, but because writing news stories about Danganronpa, another episode. Just kind of the premise of that game inherently spoils the fact that there's been like the robo-apocalypse outside.
And that's where that actually made sense, because I'd always seen that and I was like, well, that's a stupid side story. And
now it is actually something that is integral.
Like something is happening out there and is affecting other people, yeah. And
I'm not sure if you're talking about Ultra Despair Girls is the side story, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't played it, but I don't know how much it shapes the overall story. It takes place between 1 and 2, but
I did hear
it takes place between you showing up at the school and 1 happening.
No, yeah, because Byakuya and Toko are in Ultra Despair Girls. Toko is playable.
Yeah, no, it's after 1 and 2, and the main
Mm.
it's like she even has like a Genocide Jill meter or something that you fill up for her to go ballistic. But
so I'm gonna go buy that game.
Yeah, I kind of want to end up with the conversation of what we're willing to do with the future of this series. But yeah, I actually, when that had been announced, I was like, people have said really good things about Danganronpa. I'm not going to play this stupid side shooter that the people that made it probably don't.
Now I'm really interested in it.
Right, and now I'm even more interested because it would have made sense to me that it would have happened at the time of the tragedy or the event.
No,
it's weird that it happens after. Okay.
There are manga and I think a visual novel about the tragedy and another one about Junko, but before she goes completely insane. But I don't think there's a playable game or an anime about the tragedy. I think the canon of Danganronpa is play 1 and 2, then Ultra Despair Girls if you want, then watch the Danganronpa 3 anime, and then the game that's coming out next year. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, but so moving in the dorms, it was cool seeing everything else, and it was freaky going to the biology room, and that's where like all the bodies are being kept. But the going to the dorms and that being destroyed, that was like my big aha, like holy crap moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
I was on the same page as you. I thought the biggest human tragedy was interior, kind of just like a failed social experiment that went wrong, and then they were just like, oh, we're just going to shut the school down and nobody will ever find out about it. And then when you go upstairs into the dorms and you're just sort of like, oh my god, like what is going on? And I think the biology room as well is where I started to piece things together, because I noticed before, I think Kyoko or Makoto did, that there were only 9 lights, and so I went, oh, okay, something's going on here. And then, well, I semi-knew, like Peter, I didn't know the mastermind, but I had an inkling because Junko is a friend's favorite character, so I just sort of thought, so she died in the first 10 minutes. She's not dead. And then when you add it up, she's the only person who doesn't die as a result of a trial or to lead up to a trial. So,
and then
when you get to the clue where Mukuro's body's scarred, you're just like, oh well, it's Junko, isn't it?
Yeah. It's easy. I figured it out where, or at least I had already sort of thought about it since I had seen stuff about Junko before playing the game. But what iced it was once they announced Mukuro's name and add her to your student handbook, I actually went and looked at everyone's page for the first time because I hadn't really gone into the student handbook much, and she has the exact same height, weight, and measurements as Junko.
That's interesting. Ooh. Yeah, I didn't even look at the.
Yeah,
I didn't even look at the book when she, to see if she had gotten added.
Mm-hmm. When they add her, it was the first time I really had looked at it, and that when I had already sort of thought it was Junko because of outside sources, and I basically had gotten spoiled without knowing every detail, but that sort of solidified it. Oh, they're twins, and they're doing some kind of twin shenanigans with us.
So that brings up another thing that really pissed me off. So I
positive, damn it.
Go positive first, Peter. Then I'll go negative.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I think I like what you're saying, Mike, because it underlies to me that how good Danganronpa's internal consistency is. Mm-hmm. Because anytime I thought the game was starting to go a little off the rails, logic wise, they would rein it back in with an explanation that they almost immediately there were several times during the cases where I would catch myself saying wait, what? And then Kyoko would say something that explained it.
Yeah, Danganronpa's convoluted and nonsensical as hell, but they do try to back it up with either scenarios or backstory. There's a lot of exposition in Danganronpa, and it's crazy, but they try to justify it. I'm sure if I went real hard ass about it, I could just shoot it full of plot holes.
It goes full Metal Gear.
Yeah, but they do make an effort to explain everything that's happening.
Anyway, Josh, go with your hate.
Okay, so I actually had originally thought that the corpse. My solution was that nobody actually died originally, and that they had reused the body. And I actually had thought that they reused Junko's body. And when I was going through that, I started looking at names, and one of the things that I got really upset about was the Celeste name was wrong, which at the beginning of the game, or at one point during the game, they had stressed that all the names in the handbooks are the actual true names, and that they wouldn't lie about anything because there was no worthwhile reason to do that. And the Celeste name was still wrong, which I was frustrated about because that would have been the logical way that the fanfic guy would have been able to figure it out.
Wasn't that
what her last name was?
Point in her case, wasn't it? That was how they clinched it in the case.
Right.
Was that it was her real name.
Right. But it was one of those things that I'm actually... So originally I was like, oh, he must have just found it in the handbook. But nowhere in the handbook does it even state that she has a last name. Or when you look at when you're scrolling down through all the names, and then when you go inside to actually the profile, it shows the name that she was saying that she had. But Monokuma had repeatedly said that all the information in there is accurate.
Okay, I think I might have a counterpoint to that. I'm not sure though, but I think that the way they solved the case was her real name only shows up on her handbook when when you log in, mm-hmm. and the information on the other ones was meant to obfuscate that fact to both the player and to the other students, because otherwise they would have figured out the case immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a loophole in it.
It's annoying.
After Monokuma stressed it so much about how important those were and how accurate they were. And that is how they solve it, is the home page of it, or the login page, but
right,
it's still irritating.
You can't really take Monokuma at his word.
He's a bear. He's very good at being grisly with some facts.
He never plays bear with the
Teddy.
facts.
Unlike
anything's
Teddy or
possible with him.
Oh my god! Do you know what?
I was so happy when that started happening in the game.
Yeah, I was too. I
Teddy
was
or Morgana. Best mascot, go. Teddy, Morgana, or Monokuma?
Teddy.
Surprise vote for Koromaru.
Yes, Koromaru. Oh, actually no. Repeat.
Oh, Repeat from Vesperia.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's real good. He's a real solid game dog.
And this is why nobody fills out our polls.
Mr. Drippy.
Okay, Mr. Drippy's like he's probably the best part of Ni no Kuni, but
I can't say no to the High Lord of the Fairies.
Exactly. That's my actual answer.
if you really roll
Teddy's
it
the
back,
best bear.
I don't know. Maybe Mog from Final Fantasy VI. He's right on the cover of the North American box art.
The blue bear from Final Fantasy X's okay too. It's a callback to an old episode.
Blue bear.
Oh, right.
Kimari.
Yeah.
Kimari.
Well, Final Fantasy X does have the best sports game in RPG history.
Screw
Does.
you.
No, it does.
Screw off.
All right, well, okay, that's from 15 months ago, so maybe we should actually talk about the final case, because holy crap, Junko. Like, when everything's...
It's not really a case, though.
Okay, it's not... Okay, you're right. You're right. It's not a
Ew.
case. It's basically just a bunch of nonsense, and you have to shoot her despair full of hope. But, I mean, it's the Junko show is a total blast.
Yes.
Like, from her reveal through all of her explanations, then through to the final confrontation. I really liked it, and I actually had to do the last bit of it on low health, so it was really stressful.
Yeah.
Oh
But-
yeah,
It's-
but once I lost a heart, I lost a heart because I made it to the end of the thing and I missed a truth bullet somewhere on there, and I lost health, and I was like, oh dear.
Yeah, when I got to the last bit, and I loved the last bit actually, I didn't realize what I had to do. So I was reading through everybody's kind of like Junko's massive speech and everybody's ellipses, and I just thought, what am I doing? What have I got to do? And it literally took me about 10 minutes before I went, ultimate hope. I was like, oh yeah, shoot everybody with hope. And I was like,
The absorb bullet mechanic kind of threw me off every time.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
same.
So
Yeah.
because it's used really sparingly. Like all the mechanics are used really randomly, and
the absorb's introduced late and is barely used at all. I think maybe it happens more often on higher difficulties, but I'm not sure about that.
I think it's supposed to
be.
increase in difficulty, and also the little things that are in the way are supposed to increase in the white noise or whatever.
Yeah, uh-huh.
which I didn't even
Yeah.
encounter the white noise because I had action on the low.
Yeah,
But
I kept it to the
Okay.
default setting, but it was
Yes.
yeah, it's a little tricky to figure out unless you remember every detail about what you can do in combat. But it's
And
Which I kind of have a bone to pick with that. I kind of wish we weren't still learning new ways to play the game as we moved into the final quarter of the game.
I don't think it
Yeah.
was really a new way. It was just it was an obscure thing that doesn't come up often. That's employed in a little bit of a strange way. It's
they
not
were still-
intuitive. I think
they
it's
were still introducing new mechanics.
Yeah, they're
as
still
late as late as the fifth case. They were
I
introducing
guess
new
so.
things to bullet time battle and
So the bullet time battle, that's the one where you're the
The
rhythm
rhythm.
game, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this is going to sound really terrible. I could never figure out how to do that game. Like, I went through the tutorial, I somehow stumbled through the first case, and it took me watching the anime for me to actually learn how to do it,
oh, okay.
which I thought was kind of interesting, because I was struggling. I was like, and that's why I kind of brought it up the first time. I was like, I don't know how to, I barely know how to do it. I knew I was doing the rhythms, but I wasn't shooting was the problem. I kept always, getting my combo really high and then never actually do anything.
Yeah, you have to. I think it counts as a rhythm no matter what button you press, but the key is when to reload and when to shoot.
Right.
And
which you
it's,
can
that's-
you can use.
That was the
touch
issue I had.
Makes it
was-
easier.
I thought if you got the combo really high, that was good, and if you were missing, that was bad. And then it was really bad. And I was trying to tap with my other hand, and that occasionally worked, and that must have done well enough for me to get through. And then I watched the anime. They had the first case. I was like, oh, that makes total sense. I don't know what I was doing before.
They actually do bullet time battle in the anime. I haven't watched.
They rip
they
half of that game out.
they allude to it. They even have you during sequences in the game where you had to do the hangman thing with the
Yep.
with the letters appearing. They
That's
don't-
there too.
Yeah, they don't actually play Hangman in the anime, but you see him zoom in on him closing his eyes, and then the letters forming in a bar at the bottom.
Yeah. Which
so-
I know we didn't like Hangman's Gambit, but I do like that intro to the mini game. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
No,
I'll give you that.
Hangman's Gambit looks cool until you actually have to do it. And
Although
Yeah.
when they had you spell wolf, I was pretty happy. I was like, oh, that's the easiest thing in the world. Why are you having me do this?
and in Danganronpa 2, the games change a little bit, and there's more of them, but I think they're a little better explained and better implemented. And the least favorite one stops being Hangman's Gambit and starts being the stupid falling sliding letters one that I don't want to ever do.
Good. There's something even worse.
Yeah.
That's
I saw that.
spectacular.
Oh, and then there's also a racing game that they add, but that one's not so bad.
Oh,
Hey.
What?
Yeah.
racing game.
Hey.
Hooray!
That's too bad.
But Junko, man, the switching personalities on the fly, executing her with 7 executions in a row, with her smiling the whole time.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
the execution was kind of weird. It was really cool because it kind of showed
gnarly.
all the things that they had planned. But
What- And once once they actually do she actually like gets
Dies.
hit by the sledgehammer, and there's just like crunch splat. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah, that was really uncomfortable. I just sort of cringed. I was like, oh, so she's, yeah.
yeah, because it had
Okay.
been really confusing up to that point. Because it's like all these things killed everybody else. How is she okay? It's like, oh, maybe she's gonna be all right. And then that last game was like,
she's basically just a superhuman that loves despair, and it's
I was gonna say she's a Terminator.
she loves pain.
She probably is.
She
and
probably-
one thing I think is sort of funny. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I replayed this game, and at the very beginning, I had to hold myself to not say this at the previous episode, but when you look at Mukuro dressed as Junko versus the real Junko, you actually see several differences.
Their eyes,
Yeah,
their eye makeup's totally different.
The eye makeup's different. Mukuro has some freckles, while Junko's much shinier looking. And
they got more. Yeah,
and her hair
Mukuro's
is
got like
nice.
a slightly angular.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's right. Her hair is different, and also Sakura mentions at the early in the game, you don't look quite the same as on your covers. And then Junko.
I was
Yeah.
gonna bring that up.
And
That was my
Junko's-
favorite call out.
Yeah, and Junko's really Mukuro dresses Junko is real nervous and goes, "Oh, Photoshop." but playing through that, me having played the game before, just went, "Oh, that's cool foreshadowing."
Yeah,
They
that
bring
was
I
that
should
up
have
in
fantastic.
the
mentioned
trial, though, don't they?
I should
they
have
bring
mentioned
that
that
up in the
earlier.
trial.
I'm sorry, guys.
No, because they bring it up in the trial, don't they? When they're talking about when they're trying to figure out if it's who the mastermind is. There's the bit where they say, and Makoto's all like, "Oh, I remember this bit that Sakura says to her," but like the jawline's totally different, and it's so weird. It's so weird that you don't pick up on it. You just accept the Photoshop thing because
Yep.
that's the model industry. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's
You just
real
kind of-
life.
Yeah.
That is. And then to kind of see that, first of all, the real Junko is a model, but second of all, she's an absolute loony. I
She is
think at the end of
delightfully insane.
I fell in love with her very quickly. Like the minute she popped up with the crown on her head, and doesn't matter that she had a British accent, not biased. But like, I loved it.
All Brits
She-
are loony.
Oh yeah, we are absolutely. But she's not a Brit either. But she's. But yeah, I just loved it. I just sort of sat there and was like, "So you're British?" And then she changed again, and I went, "So you're strange?" And just sat and watched her
Junko
develop.
is a lot of things.
I just sort of.
I really
fell in
liked
love
I really liked heavy metal Junko when she's just like swearing up a storm.
Yeah.
with- It's my favorite one. She's just like, "Oh my god, you're like you can't say it." Like, yeah.
Another really, really small element that I greatly enjoyed was her fingernails. And when you see the dead body for case 5,
Yeah.
they're the same fingernails. And you could see that they were fake and put it on the other body.
Oh, and I also like how the Mukuro Junko had rabbit hairpins, and the real
Yeah.
Junko has Monokuma hairpins.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Little things like that.
Do they take the rabbit hairpins as inspiration for 2?
Oh, possibly, yeah. 2
Hopefully.
has a rabbit named Monami similar to Monokuma.
But yeah, Junko's amazing and probably my favorite character.
She's definitely the most interesting.
I think she's my favorite too. She's an extremely memorable villain, and having a memorable villain, I mean, can really enhance a game or a show or a book or a lot of things. So even I liked most of the main characters in Danganronpa 1, but Junko was probably my favorite.
There's something to be said about, and they kept bringing this up over the course of the game, of whoever's setting up this whole system, whoever's in charge of it, the mastermind, their dedication to the rules. And there's something to be said that at the end, when she is proven to have lost, that she still goes through with the execution. And
It's because death is the ultimate despair.
she kept talking about, like, I'm actually happy that I lost because look at all this time I put into it. Like, that whole final sequence was, she'd already been brilliant up until that point, and that it was like that just a little bit extra. And I was like, yeah, this is wonderful.
And it makes you wonder then if she picked those students because she knew she'd lose.
Well, those students were already there. Oh, you mean because
Yeah.
she didn't have them die?
Well, I think more like because where the school, and jumping ahead to the ultimate tragedy, the school is a shelter.
Mhm.
And so they use some of the kids. Like, I don't think she probably planned that far ahead, but I think she probably picked some kids to kind of perform or have someone I don't know if this is mentioned in the game. This might be a spoiler for one of the games. That they have lobotomies and have all their memories taken out for the last 2 years. I wonder if she did that, like, knowing that she would probably lose eventually. And because why would you have the ultimate detective in that group?
Yeah, I get it. I think part of it is that Junko strictly adhered to these rules and set this up and removed their memories instead of killing them. Because also remember, genocide Jill's memory isn't lost, which is one of the plot points in the final.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah,
It's great, isn't it? She's like, "Oh yeah, I remember this thing.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
know
you
about
could have
this."
said this 4
Yeah.
chapters ago."
yeah, and I think part of it is that I don't know if she wanted to lose necessarily, but I think she wanted to feel despair the way that all the people that died during the ultimate tragedy did, because she's just so weirdly despair obsessed, and when really I think she's like a lot of serial killers and criminals. She sort of feels nothing, and
they call it out as like a fetish.
So I think she wanted to feel as much despair as possible, and I think the way that she decided to try that is to repeat something similar to the ultimate tragedy, but using the students that maybe opposed her the most.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, like, it's just basically a win-win situation for her. She'll die and she'll have ultimate despair, or all of the kids will kill each other and she'll be basking in despair, kind of.
Basking in despair is exactly what Junko wants.
Yeah.
And eventually, during her execution scene, she is so happy to feel that much despair.
I thought it was interesting that she calls out that she hates Makoto the most out of all the students. I'm not sure if
he's
that's
so relentlessly good.
That's what I was going to
like,
say.
he's the total opposite. Like, she's the old part of the ultimate despair, and then Kyoko's like, that's because Makoto, you are the ultimate hope. And it's just kind of like the absolute perfect juxtaposition between the two characters. Like, of course Junko hates him because he is the exact opposite of her, basically.
At the same time, if you take away just kind of them being foil characters, Bakia and Kyoko like do so much worse to the whole plans throughout the whole game. I think they're much more stand in the way throughout the whole case.
But they all did it through Makoto.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it is just the foilness or they finally got the plan back on, like, going in the right direction, and then he chose to not to expose the lie for Kyoko, which ultimately kind of ruins everything. But I really would have anticipated Junko to hate Kyoko the most. Since she disappears for a large period of time, she's the one that gets the keys and steals stuff from her. And
yeah, well, Kyoko interferes with Junko maybe more than Makoto does, but I think Kyoko's more interested in the truth, and while Makoto really tries to see the best in everyone and is full of hope, and even though Kyoko's maybe even more of an obstacle to Junko than Makoto is, I think it makes sense that she hates Makoto more, since he is just so full of hope, and she wants everything to be full of despair.
No, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that they
But also,
are
I mean, you really like Kyoko,
diametrically
so
opposite.
Kyoko's a great heroine. She's
Yeah.
She's great.
You didn't always know what she was up to, but she's a really likable main character or major character.
Yeah, she is.
Almost everyone in this game is likable except for that doofus Yasuhiro.
So we kind of moved into the end. Them leaving afterwards, I guess it touches on a bigger conversation I want to have about, and we've kind of touched on it throughout the podcast, of what's next. And with that, I kind of want to go, it seems like everybody really enjoyed the game. Is everybody in for the long haul now? Is everybody going to go play 2? Is everybody going to play the side story? Is everybody moving on to 3? Or is this this was a fantastic story, but I'm happy I'm done with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm speaking as someone that went through playing this for the first time last year. After beating 1, I immediately bought 2, then immediately played it, then read some manga and art books and background stuff, and watched the Danganronpa 1 anime. Right when I finished 1, I was in it for the long haul, and I continue to be in it for the long haul. So I'm really excited to see if when they announce Danganronpa V3, which comes out in a few months in Japan. I'm really excited for that, to hear about the English language release of that.
I've already got Danganronpa 2, so probably going to start that soon.
I'm definitely in for the long haul, I think. Just there's so much going on that I don't think I could, like the cliffhanger ending on itself, I can't just leave it in the kind of, the door's open, we're out.
And I should mention, I slightly like Danganronpa 2 more than 1, for very, very subjective reasons. But if you like 1, I wholeheartedly recommend playing 2.
Yeah, I started watching the anime right away when I was playing through this. I stayed about a case or 2 behind in the anime at all times.
Okay.
And I just ran out of time today. I beat the game 2, 3 hours, 4 hours before we recorded this. So I just didn't have time to start 2, but I already bought 2. I'm ready to go with it. And like I said earlier, I'm actually going to play the little shooter side story.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued.
That's the one I haven't. The one Danganronpa thing I haven't watched or played, but I might wait for it to drop in price a little bit first. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier. I'm sorry, but I'm interested in Ultra Despair Girls, but I haven't played it yet.
But I will admit I am a little disappointed that 2 doesn't follow the same people. It's interesting because I do like the whole mechanics of this game. I like the process. I like having a community that slowly dwindles and kind of the backstabbing, everything we talked about in the first episode of this. But I am so fascinated to see what happens to this tiny group after they leave.
Well, okay, I'm going to avoid spoilers, but 2 does tie into 1, just not right away.
Okay.
So you will learn a little bit about that. And the anime that just finished a short time ago, actually, it's the Danganronpa 3 anime. Half of the episodes are what happened between 1 and 2, and half of them take place after 2 in a final killing game. And and we've probably mentioned this before, but the Danganronpa game that comes out next year is a new group of students not attached to the story. That anime is the cap off for the Junko versus the world arc.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because it is one of those things. We talked about Battle Royale last episode.
Oh yeah. That's a comparison that comes up a lot during Danganronpa discussions.
And it's one of those things, and I've never actually watched the second episode because I kind of don't want to see what happens to the people when they leave. But at the same time, you have this like massive amount of interest to see. And sometimes just the journey, the ending and the story, the explanation afterwards isn't going to be as good as the journey. And so there is a part of me that doesn't want to see what happens to this crew afterwards, but the ending of this ends so perfectly that I feel like I'm being dragged to try to find out what it is. So at least the option's there. You said you've watched the anime, correct, Mike?
Yeah, I have, yes.
Is it is there a satisfying conclusion?
The Danganronpa 3 anime?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't finished it yet. I'm only I'm a little behind actually. I'm partway through it, and it's It is dark and sad, man. Like, I can't watch more than 2 episodes
You mean
at a time.
it's dark and full of despair?
In fact, I would say that. Yes. Watching that show, watching the DGR3 anime fills me with so much despair. I can only watch a few episodes at a time.
Okay.
But
Well, successful then.
yeah, but I haven't finished it yet. But I don't want to say anything about it to avoid spoilers. But it's in 2 halves, and half of it is between 1 and 2, and half of it is after 2. Watching it in the aired order probably makes the most sense. But it just recently finished. I think its final episode aired a few days ago at the time of this recording.
And maybe we'll get a box set in the U.S. soon.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Keeping an eye out on Funimation.
I bet Crunchyroll or Funimation will promote it a little bit because their Danganronpa 1 stuff seemed popular.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hope so.
That's awesome.
But will there be Pappenbrook?
Probably.
Hope so.
Oh, and they never did a Danganronpa 2 anime because they were busy with a bunch of other stuff. But the guy who is the architect of the whole series did produce and work on the third anime series. So it's canon. It's in the canon.
Nice.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Good.
Excellent.
So I think that does it for Danganronpa. We made it through. We survived.
We're the 4 survivors of this deeply troubling, despairful podcast.
Yeah.
Who do we kill off?
We...
Who do we kill to graduate?
Yasuhiro.
Agreed. I support you in this, Peter. We finally agree on something again.
Good.
It was looking bad for a little bit, so I'm happy you guys are friends again. I'm filled with hope. So yeah, that's going to do it for us with Danganronpa. We have a tremendous amount of retro encounter, though, coming your way. We have a Falcom encounter coming up. As of a couple hours ago, actually, there was a recording for Final Fantasy VI, touching on the wonderful editorial done by Alana. And then we have a group that is watching Kingsglaive for the Final Fantasy 15 movie that's coming out, and we're going to have an episode about that coming out shortly. And then we move into October, which we have a normal type of podcast, unlike all these bonus encounters, and we'll be covering Child of Light. So lots and lots of retro encounter goodness out there. Be sure to check in every week as more and more comes your way. But in the meantime, you can always send your emails to retro@rpgfan.com. You can get on the boards and comment. And be sure to review on whatever device you're listening to this podcast on. We appreciate it. Yeah, that will do it for us here at Retro. I really appreciate you listening.